Y'all know what's going on. It's time for another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and welcome to the show, y'all. Look here. This story is about John, and I'm gonna call the female Miss Thang, right? Because I don't want to put that person's name out there. You understand what I'm saying? Even though they've gone on with their lives and so on and so forth, right? You know what I mean? This story is a personal one, right? Because John and Miss Thang, they had it going on, right? You know, and their relationship started like this. I'm gonna tell y'all how some of these relationships get started in here. It's the weirdest thing, and it happens just, I don't know. I've been in situations like this, so I can understand a lot of the things, and I'll explain some of those stories to you another time, right? It'll be on my membership page when they get that set up. But anyway, yeah, you're gonna have to pay to hear those because it's who we. I'm telling you now. So anyway, John and Miss Thing, they had that thing going on, right? And it makes me think of that song. You remember that song? Me and Mrs. Jones, we got a thing going on. Y'all remember that song? Okay, that's what this makes me think about, right? Whenever I think about them two, right? But anyway, this is what happened, right? This individual, Miss Thing, started working at the prison. She hadn't been at the prison that long. And she's working here and she's starting to see things, right? Because, when you get a female in this environment, all you got is dudes. All day, every day, you got all of these men walking around, right? And a lot of these men are trying to do what they do and catch something because they need a woman in their life. They want a woman in their life. So they put on the cologne, they work out, they got their clothes ironed and starched. You've heard these things before, right? But in this situation, this brother, John, clean. Clean, I'm talking about he got everything, in order. He carries himself in a way to where he seems to be mature and all of these types of things, right? But he's really, like two steps behind everybody else when it comes to anything, right? But who's to say what'll attract who to you? You understand what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, Miss Thing, she's seeing. And when she sees him, she likes what she sees. And when she likes what she sees, she steps to him. But she steps to him in a way that's real careful because she knows that she's crossing the line when she does this. She knows that she's not supposed to do this, right? So she tells him that she needs to see him and so on and so forth, right? But the opportunity is not there. The most important thing about being able to develop anything in here is about opportunity. And you don't have all of those, you don't have that many opportunities in here where you can say what you need to say and move on and do that. And then even if you have the opportunity to say what you need to say, you don't even have the opportunity to carry it out, right? So that's why a lot of the stuff that goes on in the penitentiary is hit and miss. You feel what I'm saying? It's mostly one of those types of relationships where it's all what you imagine a relationship could be, but it's not actually like that because there's no way that it can be like that. There's no laying on the couch at night, you know what I'm saying, when you're at the house watching television, sipping on something nice. There's no laying in the bed and cuddling. There's no sitting at the table and sharing a meal. There's none of that kind of stuff. It's all hit and miss. You talk when you can. If you think you can get away with it, you try to talk to them on the phone or you write letters and stuff like that in anonymous names and all of that kind of stuff. But in your mind, it's like you create this illusion of what this relationship really is when it's nowhere near what it is that you tell yourself in your mind, right? And that speaks a lot to the two individuals that put themselves in a situation like that, right? Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to put myself above anybody, but it's really hard to have that type of relationship in here because what it boils down to is a relationship of convenience. Either the person that's on the outside that works in the institution, either they're lonely or going through something, or the person on the inside happens to be going through something, and whatever they happen to click, and all they can really do for each other is to be there in those fleeting moments, feed the one that's locked up, bring them something, or give them sex. That's it. It's nothing where you can really build in most situations because you don't have the time. You don't have the time. But there are those rare situations where time can be made. And in this situation, John was able to maneuver and find himself always where Miss Thang was. And she always made sure she was in the places that she needed to be because she had cover like that. You understand? And when I say cover, I mean the position that she held, she could do those types of things and nobody would question it. So they would stand around and they would talk, or they would meet in this place and talk, or they would be in this other place and talk, and they spend a lot of time, and every now and then they would dip. They would dip off. But what happens in here, because see, this environment is always an environment of suspicion. What happens in here is that you cannot calculate for how others will see it, right? Whether it be somebody in blue or somebody in gray, you can't account for how they'll see it. The people in blue, when they see it, they start to see a change in behavior. Now, John is looking like he's always looking for Miss Thang, and Miss Thang is always finding a reason to be where John might be. So now the people in blue, they see a pattern. Now the people in gray, when they see that, they think first of all, okay, Miss Thang got a reason to be here, so there's nothing there until they hear the rumor, right? You know what I'm saying? 1-800-inmate is real, y'all. 1-800-inmate, because they talk. Everybody in here get to talking and whatnot, and see, you got a lot of haters in here when they get to talking. They'll talk around somebody that they know is a snitch, you understand? So that individual can take that information back and say something to the administration. Now, when they start to watch these interactions, they see them through a different lens. It's not that Miss Thang has a reason to be here. Miss Thang is making herself be here so she can have time to talk to John. But in comes this peon. This peon that is fond of John and Miss Thang. He sees what's happening. He sees what happened. And he works in an area where he works now from, let's call him a trustee. He works in an area where he hears the rumblings. He hears the rumblings from different officers. And they would ask certain questions. You know what I'm saying? So one day, he's seeing what everybody else sees on the compound about Miss Thang and John doing their thing. So he calls himself gonna look out for John. So he steps to John, not understanding how the penitentiary works. You see and you don't see. You hear and you don't hear. People don't appreciate you looking out for them. I'm telling you what's real, y'all. People don't appreciate you looking out for them. They get suspicious of that because why you in my business? I ain't doing nothing. See, that's the line. I ain't doing nothing. Even when you got somebody that's coming to you and laying it out, you know what you're doing. And when they come to you and they're laying it out, you're suspicious of that because you think that they're trying to get something from you, tell on you or whatever. And that's because of the way we live in here. Everything in here is about suspicion. So when somebody comes to you, you don't trust it. So when this peon comes to John knows that it's true what he's saying, but he don't trust it. He's nervous about it. So he said, look here, man, stay out of my business. I ain't doing nothing. And don't come to me like that no more. But the first thing John does, he makes his way to Miss Thang so he can tell Miss Thang, look, we got a problem. She said, what kind of problem we got? And he tells her about the peon that's in his business. Now she's nervous. Now she starts to think about her home life. Now she starts to think about her kids that are in high school. Now she starts to think about her boyfriend out there, not her husband. Her boyfriend out there that she's not really jiving with, but he's still living in the household. You understand what I'm saying? She still has feelings for him, but those feelings have been laying dormant until now. She starts to think about all the things that she could lose in this situation. Now she's thinking about, and now she's nervous. And when a person is nervous, they get scared. And when they get scared, they do what? They react. That fight or flight. Her issue was to fight. Who is it? What's his name? So John gives her this dude's name. She writes it down. Now she thinks she's slick. Now she finna play the game. And she got friends that's officers and all this and that, right? And she thinks she can manipulate and pull strings like the puppet master. So she goes to these officers and she said, this guy's giving me trouble. You know what they do. They go shake him down. They messing with him and all this and that. Now, this is what she don't calculate. She don't calculate that one of those officers is going to say, and you leave Miss Thang alone. You stay out of her business. This, and that. Now, when they say that to that, when this particular officer says that to him, now his antenna go off. Now, that's why they messing with me. I said something to John John, and John John done went back and said something to Miss Thang, and now Miss Thang done put the police on me. Now he's upset because he was calling himself looking out for John John, but he didn't really understand how this thing go. So now he's mad. So what do you do when you get mad? I just told y'all what you do when you get mad. You get scared and then you fight. So his fight or flight kicked in. So now he's trying to protect himself because he don't want to get transferred. See what I'm saying? He don't want to get transferred. But how do you keep yourself from getting transferred when the police is shaking you down and then you got one of the people that work here that's cool with the police, they put them on you? How do you protect yourself? You do what a lot of people in here do. You write a note and you drop it to the warden. You tell the warden what's going on. Enter internal affairs. And that's what the peon did. Now he dropped this note and he told them, he started naming times and places and all this and that. He even tells them that he said something to John John because he was looking out for him. And the next thing you know, he gets shut down by these officers. He named the officers in there. He named the officer that said something to him about Miss Thang and all of this stuff. And you know what IA did? IA stepped to everybody and pulled them in and got out. The first thing, they pulled the officers in, and the officers, they all told him, yes, she said that she was having trouble out of them. So we went to him, you know what I'm saying, as colleagues and stepped back and bumped down on him. Now, the officer that said, leave Miss Thang alone, he did say that, right? But see, they're not understanding the full scope because they didn't have the full picture for Miss Thang. See what I'm saying? They was acting on half information. You see? Now, this snowball is rolling down here, y'all. 80 miles an hour, rolling. But don't nobody see it. You can't hear it. You know how when snow be rolling and you can hear that crunch sound, that ice crunching against each other? See, it's picking up steam. And that's what's going on, right? But see, when you involved in stuff like this, you can't hear the snowball rolling. You can't hear the train coming, and it's coming so fast it's finna smack you. She can't see that. So now internal affairs is watching. Now the warden has got internal affairs watching. Now other officers are paying more attention to Miss Thang and John John. And now they're seeing this and seeing that. Now, she thinks everything is okay because they haven't stepped to her yet. They ain't said nothing to her yet. They got to make sure they got their ducks in a row. They ain't said nothing to John John yet, so they just leaning back and they're watching. Week goes by, a couple of weeks go by. Hold on, wait a minute. The peon, they pulled him in and they asked the peon what was going on with the situation personally, and he told them. So now they said, look, let us know what's going on. You keep your eyes open. You're doing a fine job, young man. See, that's the model inmate for you. You understand what I'm saying? So now he feels emboldened. He's feeling validated. He's feeling protected. Now he's doing the work of the popo. And he's watching everything. But these two, Miss Thang and John John, haven't a clue. They don't have a clue. Everything is about to unravel. So now here we go. Miss Thang and John John, they meeting up. Here, there. But now, the administration is seeing this in a negative way. Because every time that they meet, they're logging it down. What is her justification for being here? What is her justification for being there? Blah, blah, blah. So the person that Miss Thang answers to says, why are you here? Why are you there? What are you doing? This, and that. So Miss Thang gives this bogus excuse as to why she is in these situations talking to John John. A bogus excuse, right? Because they give a lot of excuses. They'll say, well, he wanted me to look up this for him. He wanted me to check on something about his case. He wanted to try to change jobs. He was having a problem at home, so I helped him talk to the counselor and all kinds of stuff, right? Stuff that sounds legitimate and is legitimate in a lot of cases, in most cases, but looking through the lens of suspicion, ain't nothing legitimate about it. These are just excuses. But they got their eyes on them, all the way on them, and they're not playing. So time goes on. A month has passed. They got enough evidence to move on because they've been in these places. And what I call is the 2-minute rule, y'all. And I ain't talking about no sex. You understand what I'm saying? 2-minute rules. Let somebody be out of sight on from a camera for more than 2 minutes in the penitentiary. Guess what's going to happen to you? They're going to bump down on you. You can't be out of sight off camera for more than 2 minutes, y'all. They'll use that to pop you. So they're in this area where there are cameras. They make their way to a blind spot, right? where there are no cameras and they are alone. That's one of those opportunities I was telling you that you have to create in here. Now, they're off camera for 2 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes. Do you know how much can go on in 30 minutes? Now, seriously, do you know how much can go on in 30 minutes when you are committed? Touching, rubbing, sucking, kissing, everything can go on in 30 minutes. In 30 minutes. Especially when you know you don't have a lot of time and you don't know when it's going to happen. See, that's when it get good. You know what I'm saying? When it's intense like that because you don't know what's going to happen and you're looking over your shoulder, you're thinking, did you hear something? And then you stop and you freeze. Then you just keep on going and then you stop again and all of that kind of stuff. That's what makes it fun. And then when you get away with it, you be laughing and giggling because you think you got away with something. But this particular day, they caught up. They in the closet. I'm talking about, listen to me, y'all. Listen to me. I ain't going to get too graphic because I've been warned about my monetization. I got to make sure I'm careful with that. You know? But he got in the buck. Y'all know what that means. Y'all know what the buck is. He got in the buck and he long stroking him. I'm talking about long stroking. Tip to belly, y'all. Tip to belly. You understand what I'm saying? Tip to belly. Figure it out. Use your imagination. You know what I'm talking about. So quit playing, grown folks. When he tipped to belly and he going in and then he pulling out and he going in and he pulling out, guess what happened? All of a sudden you hear the sound of the suction of the door opening. Wham! Don't nobody move. He freeze mid-motion. Freeze mid-motion. Ain't got a stitch of clothes on from his waist to his knees. Everything dropped down past to his ankles. Everything. She laying on her back in the buck. She raised her head up and then all of a sudden she covered her face in embarrassment. Oh my God, I'm sorry. Then she starts to panic and gets frantic about it. She grabs and pulling her clothes up and all this and that. Now look, they snatch her. She ain't even got her clothes on good. They snatched her. They got the female officers there with them. You know what I'm saying? Because when they come like that, you know what it is. I'm talking about, listen to me. When I say they had her in the buck, wide open like a smoker, you could see everything. You could see everything. She was enjoying herself. How can you go from the height of ecstasy to the low of the low that you've ever felt in your life in a split second? Because that's what she did. 1 minute she was right there about to have an orgasm. The next minute her whole life flashed before her eyes. They drug him up out of there so fast he didn't even have time to pull his clothes up. Didn't even have time to pull his clothes up. And they walked her straight up out of here too. Now the rumor is starting to float around. What's going on? How did they know? See, this is how people in the penitentiary get. It's so crazy to me. See, they'll hate the fact that it wasn't them able to do Miss Thang like that and get up in them. They'll hate the fact that it wasn't them. You feel me? But they don't appreciate that the peon was part of the takedown. Because, see, it had leaked out. It had leaked out that he had caught them or seen them once before, and he used that to holler at Miss Thang. All of that had leaked out. Now, tell me something. How would that leak out? If ain't nobody but the people at the top got it and the certain officers got it, how would that leak out? You tell me. When you figure it out, let me know in my comment section. You already know what I'm talking about. But it had leaked out. So now the compound is looking at him like, he ain't straight. He ain't straight. They upset that they were not the ones that were having a relationship with Miss Thang, but they don't appreciate the fact that somebody in blue messed the whole thing up. Why? Because they look at it like this. Get the dude, but not the gal. You cross the dude out, the gal stay. If she going once, she'll go again. That's just what it is. And that's just how they see it. But in this situation, now the rumors are floating around. The peon got to go. The peon got to go. So now he ended up checking in and he's gone. What's the moral of this story? What is the moral of this story? Because you think about all the things that go on in the penitentiary, and you think about all of the things that you lose when you come to the penitentiary, and all of those types of things, right? And when you're here, you will do whatever you need to do because you just want that human contact. You want somebody to be able to validate you. You want somebody that makes you feel like a human being through touch, through concern, through paying attention to you and all of those types of things. And you lose that when you come here. You lose that. And you'll find yourself in a situation that's not healthy for you or the individual, because it wasn't healthy for John or Miss Thang to be involved like that. But because John longing for that type of he don't even understand, and most people in here don't even understand why they would take such a risk. When you're not actually spending a lot of time. In your mind, you're telling yourself you're in a relationship, but you're not really in a relationship. How can you be in a relationship when you're never, ever fully alone? Never. You can't take a shower together. You can't eat dinner together. You can't do any of those things that form those strong bonds of a relationship. But you tell yourself that you have that, but you really don't. But you long for that when you're in here. So remember that as something that you'll lose. If you find yourself in a situation and you come here, you're going to lose that. And you're going to find yourself wanting it. So do yourself a favor. While you're out there and you have it or you have the opportunity to have it, do right by it. Whether you're the man or the woman, do right by it and relish in that and appreciate what you have. Because when you come in here, you're going to lie to yourself and tell yourself that you can still have that in the way that's beneficial to you, and you can't and you won't. You're going to have to compromise and just take what you can get. And that's the point of this. In the penitentiary, you got to take what you can get. And most of the time, what you can get is not going to satisfy you. But you're going to have to convince yourself that it is satisfying. Remember that, y'all. This has been another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and I say peace, y'all.